I wonder if you remember the film of El Cid, the 1961 film, rather than the recent animated film, which is great fun in its own way. But the film with Charlton Heston follows the attempt by a general from the Almoravid dynasty to wage war in Spain, and and how the emirs in the Moorish army are struck by the charity of Charlton Heston, El Cid, and name him El Cid, Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar. And I remember Sophia Loren spends most of the film crying. Anyway, at the end of the film, El Cid is killed. An arrow shoots straight through him, and he spends a good 20 minutes dying. And finally, and there's an option of him being treated in a hospital. Remember, the word hospital and hospitler is all about the Islamic tradition of care for the wounded, of care for the sick. And we get the word hospital and the word hotel from the same root. And the Hospitaller Knights, who gather together, inspired by the Arabic medicine. And they set up the idea of Western European hospitals and hospitals and hotels to care for people who are in transit to pilgrimage in the Holy Land or who are involved in the Crusades. Anyway, the Rodrigo dies, and there's rumors of his death, and his final wish is that he should lead his troops out in full armor, and they strap him onto his horse, Babieta, and he's guided by King Alonso and the emir. They ride on either side, and his horse begins to charge, and he charges out of the pages of history into myth and legend. He becomes the purest knight of all. Well, the reason I tell this story, and the reason I'm mindful of the wonderful Charlton Heston and Sophia Loren, and Herbert Lom was the evil Ben Yusuf, the one who brings all the Moors up in revolt. And the reason I mention this is because I think there's something like this going on with President Putin. As long as Putin is wheeled around, whether he's alive or dead, it doesn't really matter. He is an image of fear. He drives fear into people's hearts, and so he can never be allowed to die. I have no idea whether it was really Putin who was managing the questions and answers the other day. I noted that it began with a direct reference to the questions about whether or not he is a doppelganger, and the wonderful joke, of course, about the doppelganger being ill. Who died? Oh, my doppelganger died. And so Putin cannot be allowed to die. And he is the new image of El Cid, or perversion of El Cid. And he will go on for as long as, I suspect, for as long as the Kremlin is in Ukraine. Because Putin is tied up. Putin is tied up with this nonsense and this invasion. And either either the deceit will be revealed. I mean, it may be that he's propped up with injections and oxygen so that he can manage to get through one of these big events like the television interview the other day. But and he looked quite pucker really in that television broadcast, as indeed he has on the one or two occasions when he's been caught on camera recently visiting people. But I think it's unlikely. Now, the comment section has gone wild today with some really quite abrasive comments. Some of them are a little bit personal, and I must say I wince a little bit at some of the suggestions, which questioning why I didn't go back to Russia after COVID. Well, that's because President Putin invaded Ukraine, and I have plenty of Ukrainian friends, and I have plenty of friends in Russia. The idea I don't have friends there is an extraordinary statement, but you're welcome to make all these statements. It doesn't really matter, and I'm sure the majority of people don't believe or wouldn't participate in the sort of personal invective. And frankly, if I can't take that sort of stuff, well then, I shouldn't dish it out, and I certainly do with respect to people like Suella Braverman and Priti Patel in the past, Matt Hancock. But I hope you notice, for the most part, when these people go silent, I go silent. When these people get off the stage, I don't feel any need to poke fun at them. That is the role of satire. And I'm perfectly happy to recognize that, should we meet for a cup of tea, that they may well be perfectly reasonable adults. In the case of Putin, I don't think that's the case. I've looked into his eyes. I don't see anybody who's going to have a proper conversation. And I'm not convinced that the Putin that I see on television every so often is the real one. That is the point. Or he's not the same one that I met years ago. And so, and I'm sure that thought has gone through the minds of quite a number of people. The duplicity, the fakeness of it all. So, by all means, throw up the barbs. But at some point, I will publish a piece about my time in Russia. I will publish a piece about how I got there, what happened. It was unnerving in so many in so many ways. It was unnerving, but it was also wonderful. And those people who question my loyalty to Russia as a country, I have great loyalty to my Russian friends and to Russia. I think it's a wonderful place. I have no doubt about Putin and the Kremlin, the current Kremlin regime. None at all. And I don't think allegations or sort of intimidating claims are going to change my mind on that. As for Elfriede, I think there will come a time when dear Putin, Vladimir Vladimirovich, will be immortalized in literature as well, but I don't think it will be as one of the great heroes. I think he will go the same way as some other people from the mid-20th century, and he will be an icon of caution, to beware. And he is gradually eclipsing Stalin in terms of the amount of times that he has been in office, the amount of times he's been, the period of time that he's been in office, and the ferocity of his rule. And what's interesting is I don't think he means to be bad. I think Mr. Putin would like to be good. And this is why occasionally I've talked about evil, because I think Putin is a very good example of somebody who has embraced the quick way, who has got over the wall illicitly, and one thing after another. He has flirted with danger, and I think now it's very difficult for him to see the truth. And I would say the same thing about Patriarch Kirill. Patriarch Kirill has struck me for a long time as a man invested in evil, and that's a great shame. And again, I don't think it was always the case, but I think for the last 10 years certainly, this is a man who is in love with his authority, who has quite a hypocritical life. The boats, the watches, the extraordinary mansion. And one of the things which I noticed was the size of his cavalcade. Yes, the cars pull to one side when the president travels down the road, and the string of black cars passes. But when the patriarch travels, it's an even bigger mass of cars. For what? For what? The servant of God.